special COBRA interview done every month. And as usual, I need to thank my voice modulator and sound editor, Ricky Serafico, the artist for the lead and intro music that you're hearing, as well as Danelle Glade, who does the wonderful transcripts, Sam Ritchie, as well as the person who does the wonderful videos. It was Smalley and maybe someone else. Lately, I'm not sure COBRA's having that sent out, but thank you all for your wonderful help and service. Lots of things are taking place now. We have a lot of questions we're going to answer to allay people's fears and paranoia about a lot of things going on here this month. But I want to announce several very wonderful things that are taking place. One is of course, the Mount Shasta Ascension Portal Conference. We're about 4 months out now. A lot of you may want to start to plan your trip, and the sooner you can purchase your tickets, the better. It will help me create the budget to make sure that all of our speakers and everything can get here. So if you guys are interested, there is an early bird special right now for the Mount Shasta Ascension Portal Conference. And I have a couple things to share with you in regards to that wonderful event coming up August 19th through the 23rd in Mount Shasta. If you look on the sidebar of my website, you're going to see a green button that is a countdown clock, and you can register there and enter the promo code ROB, and that will give you a discount for that event. Also, I wanted to let you all know that we've added Michael Sala, the UFO exopolitics expert who wrote the book Galactic Diplomacy, which is a wonderful book. I interviewed him, and you can check him out on my other radio interview pages. Also, I have a couple special announcements for those of you who are wondering about coming to Mount Shasta. I've been a massage therapist for many, many, many years of my life, and I wanted to offer a special deal to massage therapists. We have a few positions open. We're going to be creating a massage venue there, and this is for people who wanted to come to the conference and they're massage therapists and couldn't possibly afford it. We want to offer for you to send me in the subject line massage therapist volunteer. I will forward this to a coordinator who is going to be running the massage therapy at the venue, and you will be allowed to purchase a ticket, and you will make yourself available to earn some money back to pay for your journey there. So if you're interested in that, we can do that. Also, for people who are wanting to come who may want to become vendors, it's not going to be really huge or big, but we're going to offer some locations on site for people who want to be vendors. If you have some products, you can contact me and say Mount Shasta Vendors. And for everyone who contacts me, massage therapists, vendors, or anyone else, always include your phone number so I can get back to you and discuss your opportunity to come to the Mount Shasta event. You know the wonderful lineup. We do have Omnek, and I want to urge you all to enjoy some of Omnek's teachings, and you can go to YouTube and look up her name. She has some wonderful teachings through the years. I have some when she was quite young, actually on my Facebook page, that were quite interesting, talking about the history of the earth and what took place. I think it would be good and invaluable for you to understand the nature of the revelation that is Omnek. Now, her life and story represents a plain revelation of truth that I feel will be very important to our earth culture to openly embrace at this time. Omnik's life is not an oddity. It's not a publicity stunt to be gawked at or displayed for profit or to appease any cultish followers. I hope you will respect the privacy and courage of her life story and that which it represents, and recognize the elegance and open honesty she always expresses in her public appearances. She is the first soul to openly declare to the general public she is from Venus. There have been so many in our Earth's history to come from Venus. However, the morning star's influence on our world and our culture will become apparent as the truth is slowly revealed to the world at large. There are so many others that are here from Venus and elsewhere living amongst us now, it's difficult for us to comprehend, really. The masters chose well when they chose Omnek. She was offered her mission to be the icebreaker for the general public. She holds no scientific secrets or technology, nor is she a threat to the powers that be. Rather, the actual fact of her existence and where she came from is in and of itself the point for humanity to grasp. Many other revelations of life in other worlds and other dimensions are soon to follow for Earth and her peoples, as the whole truth breaks into the light of day for a new humanity. Come and experience and test with your presence. Feel your inner awareness and the truth as she presents her story. She'll be with us for 5 days, and she'll be sharing her message of joy, unconditional love, and non-judgment. So the Mount Shasta Conference, along with James Gilliland, we're going to show the screening of The Stranger of the Pentagon with Greg Campobasso. Ted Marr, the wonderful psychic and intuitive, will be there, along with Scott Lemrill, the author of the series Agenda. Will be explaining a lot of things. He's a soul traveler and is very well connected to Omnek Omnek, along with Anya Schaefer, who will be sharing her experiences and introduction to Omnek's work at the conference, as well as our other guests, which will include me, Michael Sala, James Gilliland, Craig Campobasso, and Alex Collier. I'd like you all to hold Alex Collier in your prayers. He has just gone into surgery for colon cancer. He has a very aggressive tumor. We wish him well. He is doing his best to heal this naturally. It was very close to an important area, so he is moving forward with that. He is actually just going out of the hospital today. AlexCollier.org. Please go there if you feel a need to put a donation in to help him cover his stay in the convalescence of a motel there would be greatly appreciated. But we're pretty sure he's going to recover and like gangbusters and make it to Mount Shasta. As far as Mount Shasta goes, the early bird specials are going to be ending in June, so those of you who want to get together on that. As far as regular volunteers and free passes go, we're about filled up, but if you want to send those in, we're looking now for young, healthy males or females. We have some heavy lifting and some kind of physical activity, but pretty much our positions are almost filled right now. Do include your phone number there. Anyone who knows someone in the Northern California area with a food truck, we are going to have catering. It's been determined now. We're going to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm looking for a food truck to provide on site. There's no electricity up there, so someone's got a self-contained unit. That's my little shout out for all of you people who are interested in coming to Mount Shasta. I also would like to announce that for those of you who have been asking questions of COBRA and they don't get asked, please understand that these questions are many times repeats, easily available on his website, or simply just silly. You know, some people ask some silly questions. I'm just not going to ask them. We have more important things to discuss. No offense to you. Also, there just may be not enough time. I will be answering questions on May 2nd from 12 o'clock till 2 o'clock. We're going to be having a webinar, and you can actually, even if you're asleep during that time and can't make that, you can type in questions to me through the instructions that are contained at the top of this interview page, and I will answer them for you. Or you can ask them live in a chat in a webinar on May 2nd. That's available on my website under events and, of course, on this COBRA page and in many Facebook locations. So I may be doing that once every 2 months. Got a lot of questions answered in my last webinar, and we're going to go forward there. If you have details and questions that you need to get answered, take a look at that and sign up. I will appreciate it. Fortunately, people have been mailing me questions, and I'm going to have to just decline now. My time is too crushed right now. I spend sometimes 2 hours a day answering questions for people, and I love to do this because I always wanted answers, but I'm going to have to make the time a little more limited on that. And that's why we're having the webinar coming up. So we're going to get to the COBRA interview in just a second. I have one more announcement to make to let you all know that I am still taking some interested parties to Bolivia. And I'm going to recommend for those of you who are interested in learning about that kind of thing, there's a book called Secret of the Andes by Brother Philip. And we'll be going to the primary feminine vortex on the planet in Lake Titicaca, and we are pretty much full, but if someone's still interested in that, you can contact me there as well. Thank you so much. And the final announcement I have to make, which is very important for all of you, is I have a new addition to my website called Mr. Truth Seeker, and I want you to read his bio. You click on that. It's very well visible on my front page. Click that link. Every single day, Mr. Truth Seeker, my brother, is an tireless warrior for the light. You people at the Event Chronicles and Teresa, everyone out there who's looking for updates, this gentleman has so many links to health, positive information, self-improvement, military, financial, global reports. If you want to go somewhere every day and find out what's going on and find a history, an archived history of what's going on the planet, it's going to be on this page, Mr. Truth Seeker. Take a time. There's 5 different sections, endless links. He has older posts. If you have any type of health problem, you research his health section and you're going to be blown away. Mr. Truth Seeker is going to become a very important information hub for many, many people in the future and hopefully at the time of the event because of the mass quantities of information that is shared there. Please read my intro and do read his biography. It is an amazing background and history of his journey of discovery. At the same time, will bring you in a position to share this with people who are brand new to this type of information in regards to event and spiritual transformation and healing our world. The history and the recording that he's provided here is very profound. That's it. It's a little bit long on my updates this month, but thank you all. Cobra's coming right now. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, in Earth time. It is April 16th. Welcome to another special edition of the Victor of Light Radio Show, Cobra. Thank you so much for coming on again.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
We have a couple major things. We got so many questions this month. There's no way we're going to get through them all. I apologize for you people again for won't get your questions asked. But Cobra, I'd like to start off, and I always do this when I get a lot of questions from people. We spoke about this privately the other day, but my take is kind of like yours. Of course, no one knows the future exactly, but we've been hearing about chemtrails have been on the scene now for at least 17 years going over the planet. We've had endless horror and destruction through the secret governments and their depopulation programs and all of these things going on, as well as fomenting of wars, and all these things are horrible things. And for some reason now there's an internet push, another fear-based element. We've had FEMA camps for a long time. A lot of people, some close friends of mine, are extremely depressed and paranoid. They seem to become reactive to certain things. So we'll talk about what they can do to shield themselves from that. But the primary question is Jade Helm. There seems to be evidence for some people indicating that there are masses of foreign troops living normal lives and will be activated as sleeper cells to join NATO operations in some sort of joint operation called Jade Helm. Could you please give a little background to this type of stuff to allay the incessant fears? And I know that they may get away with something, certain elements of this may take place, but can you speak about the fail-safe for the resistance and what is going on with this operation? It's very important to a lot of people right now.
Okay, the first thing I would like to mention here is that this is a double-edged sword. So on the surface, it might appear like a big operation for the cabal, but on the other hand, I could say that the same troops, the same movements can be interpreted as movements of the positive military. So I would not get too afraid over this situation. And also, if there would be even a remote chance that something like this could go out of control, the resistance movement could trigger the event if necessary.
Okay, the question I'm going to ask is, if the resistance movement could stop this, for instance, why wouldn't they stop some of these other things going on in Ukraine? That's another horrible tragedy that's going on over there. A lot of people have mentioned, why aren't they intervening in these things? Why are they letting these skirmishes to take place? Why would America trigger more heavy intervention?
Okay, it is a risk assessment evaluation. So we have the Chimera group with their strange lead bombs on one side and the atrocities that those people are doing on the other side. And the resistance movement will intervene when the risk will be worth it. So, for example, if we would have a massive, like martial scenario in the United States that would affect 200 million people, that might be a worthwhile risk to risk some strange lead bomb explosions, and then the resistance movement will intervene. I will not give any strategic details of how those risks are evaluated, but I will just say that the resistance movement and the light forces know exactly how to act to minimize the suffering on this planet, and they never allow unnecessary suffering to continue. If they can prevent it, they are preventing it, but they will not be taking risks to reduce a certain amount of suffering to risk even much larger amount of suffering that could potentially take place.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned that these troops could be interpreted as being used by the light forces. Obviously, these on the ground troops are just taking orders and following. Ben Fulford seemed to have mentioned that. I personally, no disrespect to Ben, but I consider some of his intel really, not necessarily very good. He does have good intel and he has a very good intent, but I'm not sure he would know that this is definitely being planned by the good guys, or is it being planned by the bad guys and the good guys are letting it go and then we'll take over at the last minute? What do you think is the situation there in regards to the who's in control of these guys? And can you tell us what is the primary intention? Is this cabal orchestrated movements or are these good guy orchestrated movements?
First, about Ben Fulford's intel, you need to use his reports to pick the gems of intel and leave the rest, because there are some encoded real gems inside there, and do not worry about the rest. Regarding this Jade Helm situation, I will not comment on the deeper background of this, but I will give you an analogy. This famous financial restructuring by the Eastern and BRICS alliance, those new infrastructure banks, they can be interpreted as a new globalized central new order system, or they can be interpreted as the advance of the light forces.
Very good. And obviously, I mean, why would the bad guys switch a system? It's the good guys that are trying to initiate the system. The bad guys obviously are trying to infiltrate as much as they can. So thank you so much for that. The next big thing I'd like to talk about, which has broken on the scene since we talked about last time, was a gentleman whose real name is Corey. He got outed, which he wasn't originally happy for, and he goes by an avatar name, GoodyTXSG, I think it is, or ESG or something like that. And he was the source for David Wilcock's revelation at the LA Conscious Life Expo, where he revealed a lot of information, and you address this in your blog in regard to the what he calls the blue avians, or the civilizations from the center of the galactic sun, with the huge motherships in the Oort cloud, because they would influence our solar system's magnetics. Now, I have been told by Michael Sala that David Wilcock has flown him to Los Angeles for an exclusive. They did a series of recordings on the TV for his TV show, and he'll be doing some, be releasing that intel. He has a kind of a special exclusive, and this Corey character is not talking, but we're able to ask questions. He seems to be not directly involved so much in the super soldier program, but he's obviously has been under mind control in the past, but he seems to be breaking his programs, and he acts as kind of a, for those of you who aren't listening, I'm giving background, Cobra knows all of this, but he acts as a empath for interactions and councils, and for the information he's been giving really is shocking to many people, that there are 10 separate secret space programs run by various factions on the earth, and that, folks, there have been interactions and full-blown council meetings with multiple extraterrestrial races and multiple representatives of the world's governments going on for many, many years. I predicted this, the super soldiers and the space guys coming out. Here he is. Cobra, can you share a little? I'd like to just give an overview of the comment of his information. Is it true you posted on his blog?
Yes, I made 2 short posts on, actually not his blog, but on a certain forum where he posts quite often. I have just expressed support because he has a lot of genuine intel that is critically needed at this time for people to become generally aware of the secret space program. So this intel assists a lot in people becoming aware of various secret space programs. I do not agree completely with all his intel. I have a little bit different perspective on certain things based on my sources and my experiences, but generally I would say what he's doing is a good thing. So I have just posted a few comments there to express that.
Okay, thank you. And can you elaborate on the differences? My personal feeling is that some of his extrapolations from his opinion of what was going on, I had also some slightly variances, in that the way he made it sound that these ET races said, well, we have some interest here because we have genetic contributions to your people. And this seemed to upset a lot of Earth people, as though they owned us or had a right. Can you talk a little bit about that? All of these different groups, and are they kind of at odds with each other? Who's controlling what's going on here? It sounds more like a control matrix from his viewpoint.
Okay, this is one of the things I don't quite agree with him. He presents the whole situation as very fragmented and very compartmentalized. It is exactly as it was 10 or 20 years ago. So, according to my sources, yes, he was involved in secret space program. This I can confirm. What I cannot confirm is his updates about the current situation in the solar system. According to my sources, the current situation in the solar system is a little bit different than it was 10 or 20 years ago. And yes, he describes quite correctly all those different space programs that were present in the solar system 10 or 20 years ago. But you could view those different space programs as different aspects, different facets of one great interconnected network. For example, you could relate the corporate secret space program with mega corporations on this planet. You could relate the Solar Warden program with some aspects of the military and financial, military industrial complex. And you could relate, I would say, what he calls the Dark Fleet with the Chimera group. So there are certain correlations here. And all of this was interconnected network, which was morphing with shifting alliances, but was in one way not so fragmented as he presents it to be. But the current situation actually reflects more the positive actions of the light forces, and the vast majority of this has been cleared from the solar system, according to my sources. And what is remaining is the Chimera group, which does not have large numbers, which does have some hostages. And the most powerful point, the most powerful asset they have are the strangelet bombs, their exotic weapons. This is how they hold their positions inside of the solar system. I can confirm the existence of the sphere motherships. They can be called the motherships. They can be called by any other name. They can be called interdimensional portals. It is important to understand that human beings use words to describe phenomena. And from the perspective of those beings who are operating those spheric platforms, they are beyond linear space and time. And their understanding is much closer to what you would describe as ascended masters. So after the ascension, after you reach a certain level of consciousness, the rules are changed, perspective is changed. And I will not go deeper into this because it's too early, but I would say that their perspective on reality is more a perspective of oneness, which manifests in different fragmentations through lower dimensions. It is not a fragmented perspective itself.
Right. So it's basically they're coming from a soul level. I understand that. So they're basically dealing with interactions of multidimensional levels kind of in the all-time where our linear reality doesn't affect.
Exactly.
Yeah, the way I look at it is, Cobra, is that these superluminal light beings from the pure positive planes in the higher dimensions are coming here, and we don't understand, but every now and then, from a holographic perspective, they are blocking certain things allowed to go. We don't understand it. It seems, why did you stop that but allowed this? And it seems to me that they have a higher perspective on a holographic level to assure victory at a certain point, and certain things are allowed to continue. But when it comes to a critical nexus juncture in the time-space parallel reality continuum, they see to it that certain actions are taking place and compressing the situation. Is that correct?
I would not completely agree with that. I would say that if they are able to block something negative, they will. And I also do not agree with what Corey was saying, that the sphere beings would like to present certain lessons to humanity because this is the only way to learn some hard lessons. The light forces are never introducing so-called hard lessons to various cosmic species to increase understanding, because understanding and awareness does not evolve in that way. This is one of the old programs of the Archons. So I cannot agree with that as well.
Okay, well, from my understanding is that a lot of operations they certainly could. For instance, they could intervene and take out Boko Haram. The resistance movement could arrange for something to happen, yet it's not taking place.
Okay, I will explain. If the resistance movement does any open operations on the surface of the planet, the strange light bombs will immediately be detonated. And this could erase the life from the surface of the planet. So this is why they're not doing it. This is why the resistance movement does not interfere directly with the surface of the planet.
Okay, for me and my viewpoint, there's a lot of people who disagree with your view that this is the last place. Alex Collier is still, he's in a world of hurt right now, and he told me he hasn't had contact in over 9 months, but he still feels strongly that there's lots of negative elements out there that are still functioning. In Corey's and the Good ET gentleman, he mentioned that there were various groups of the negative groups here that were involved in going on with things. It's a little premature. I talked about some of these things occasionally with people, but I didn't really feel like I have the exact understanding of this. But to go into a little bit of the galactic landscape of the various groups, from what I understand, and there's a question I have for you in regards to the light forces, the Chimera, the reptilians, the tall grays, the Dows, the reptilian types, and tall whites, and other hostile forces, Omegans and Calrans, whatever people want to call them. During the situation here, obviously it seems apparent there were good guy bases and bad guy bases on the moon at the same time. What was the situation with these different groups? Do they contact each other and then have these skirmishes in space and then have meetings where there's a truce, like a white flag, and they communicate and the good guys are talking to them? And who's in charge of that? Is this the Jupiter Command? What's going on there?
Okay, if I go a little bit back in history, the moon was quite a prized piece of real estate because it was so close to the Earth, and many operations from the moon could influence the Earth's surface quite easily. So yes, many different races had bases on the moon. Some of them are of a positive nature, and some of them were of a negative nature. And as the situation progressed, many thousands of years ago, there were drastic battles taking place on the moon. But over time, there were certain agreements which were evolved, and they were more and more respected because different races found out that it is much easier for everybody not to fight all the time, but to respect certain agreements. Yes, there were tensions, yes, there were disputes, but most of them were resolved through diplomatic means. And each of the races and each of the factions had a very strict territory which was designated to that particular interest group. And most of the time, those agreements were respected. All this has changed in 1996 with the Archon invasion, when there was a huge, vast draconian fleet entering the solar system, and they just took over the moon completely in 96. And then the liberation forces came basically, I would say between 2001 and 2004, there was a very strong operation of the light forces to liberate the solar system. And in that time frame, they have liberated most of the locations. They were clearing those negative races, and there were quite many battles on the moon. And most of those negative bases of those races have been removed from the moon. And very few of them have been remaining. And mostly those who were remaining were the Chimera group strongholds. And out of those, most of them have been removed already. And whatever is remaining on the moon, it's a little bit classified at this moment.
Okay, so my question is, and I'm going to go into my own little history. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but of course, the Lyran system, some people say the Pleiades came from Lyra. There's a great influx information that a lot of spiritual life kind of originated, human life may have originated in the Lyran system or whatever, and it spread out. We go back in history to the Pleiades, and I understand there's a couple different areas there. There's one called Merope, which seems to have had some negative beings involved there. And from what I understand is that there's a positive group, of course, Semyasi from the Pleiades. But in our ancient history, some of the Pleiadians, according to Omnek, had battles on the Earth in regards to how much technology and what was going on down here. So groups within the Pleiades had different views of the Earth in ancient history, and they're coming back here to kind of correct that wrong originally. Would you agree with that? Could you explain a little bit about the previous Pleiadian interaction here? And of course, folks, the Pleiades is a very large with several suns in that cluster there. So we can't say it's like everyone's from one planet. There's people who have different views than your neighbor. So you could imagine the differing views from different suns. So we can't lump all Pleiadians or all extraterrestrials with gray skin into one thing. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, first I would like to mention this information that human archetype is coming from Lyra is not correct. This information is coming from a book called The Prism of Lyra, and everybody is just repeating quotes from that book without checking the facts. The second part of your question, the Pleiadians. Yes, there were rogue elements of the Pleiadian race, which they were quite visible in the Pleiadian race until up to about 200,000 years ago. And yes, they were involved in some battles on this planet throughout the early Atlantean history. And I would say that this faction was getting less and less involved, and as it was progressing spiritually, and the last fragments of that faction learned their lessons during World War II when they were involved in certain operations on the planet and learned their lesson. So I would say the Pleiadian cluster has been completely integrated in the network of light very shortly after the end of the World War II. And since then, the Pleiadian cluster has been completely accepted into the galactic network of light.
Okay, according to Alex Collier, he got quite involved in the various different races, the oxygen-based races versus the hydrogen-based races, which, of course, the reptilians are a hydrogen-based race. He says that they cannot travel beyond the speed of light. He had some other things that he talked about. One of the things I found interesting was you have Sirius A and Sirius B. He said that there are some beings in the Sirius B system that were quite negative. They had some conflicts, this is ancient history, had some conflicts with some people in the Orion system, some beings, and to solve their situation, the humans in Sirius B had some sort of marriage between the beings in the Orion system, creating what we would known as the tall grays. And so the reptilians control the tall grays, who control what are called the Tau or the Zeta reptilians, and the mantoid races. And of course there's this whole kind of scenario here where there's this hierarchical structure of these negative beings. Were these beings in Sirius B, as Alex Collier, from your information, correct? The tall grays are an offspring of a hybrid in order to kind of stop a war between the Orions and the Sirius B so that they could have peace amongst themselves while they kind of were both on a semi-hostile agenda?
The Sirius B race was having a war with the Orion-Draco complex, and many of representatives of Sirius B race have been interacting with the surface population of this planet throughout human history. Their agenda was not completely positive, but not completely negative. They were the ones who were perceiving themselves as an advanced race, and sometimes they were using human slaves for their work. They were seeing themselves as the masters. And this is something I don't completely agree with. They were not treating humans as equals. This is what I would say about that particular race. They were sometimes using technology for their advantage unethically. This is what I would say. But I can also say that recently that faction has been integrated in the Syrian alliance and is now working together with the Galactic Confederation as well. So yes, there were some genetic hybridization programs because Sirius B people wanted to infiltrate the Orion complex, and they have created some hybrid races which are not having any effect whatsoever on the cosmic situation.
Right. I often don't go into outer space like that because a lot of that stuff doesn't matter. But with Good ET coming out with his information, I kind of wanted to address some of that stuff.
I would say that this information does matter for various reasons. The first one is that the exopolitical situation greatly influences the geopolitical situation much more than people imagine. I will give you one example. The Bushes and the Kissingers and all those people still have their powers only because there are elements beyond the scope of this planet that are supporting them. And if you understand what is going on in the solar system, you will understand who is behind the wars, what is happening, what is taking place with the Eastern Alliance, because there are forces that are from beyond this planet that are supporting Putin. There are forces that are beyond this planet that are supporting the Eastern Alliance, and there are other forces that originate from beyond this planet that are supporting the cabal. And if we understand those underground mechanics, we will have a much clearer picture of what's going on the surface.
Yes, I agree with that. I generally, these mechanics and exactly what they are for the average person, it's hearsay coming from you or Collier or someone else. It's good to know that this is influencing, but I meant for the average person in their day-to-day life, the average light worker down here, a lot of people become ungrounded and worry so much about what's going on and speculate, and their mind runs rampant as opposed to purifying their self and raising their vibration. I meant it kind of in that way, but I agree with you. It is important now that people come to understand there's different groups. Could you talk a bit about Sirius A, since we talked about Sirius B? Sirius A, I understand, is the home of the Blue Lodge and the mission of the 144 Ascended Masters to Earth. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Sirius A is the beacon of light for this local cluster of stars in this local sector of the galaxy. So the Sirius A was holding the light when the Archon invasion happened and filled this quadrant of the galaxy with trillions upon trillions of dark entities. And because of Sirius A, we are still alive. And here, because of Sirius A and their light, I'm talking to you right now.
Yeah, that's what Fred Bell was very strong proponent of the Blue Lodge and the Sirius A groups there as well. So it resonates with me there. Another question I have is in regards to these giant sphere ships. Just to be clear, these are not mistaken by people with this constant talk of Nibiru and this hidden planet or star within our solar system, correct?
Okay, those sphere ships or sphere stargates, portals, whatever you want to name them, absolutely no connection with so-called Nibiru or any other entity or planet or object people are referring to connected with that. The Nibiru story is complete and absolute disinformation.
Very good. I'm really glad to hear that. From what I understand, the Nibiruns, as they're depicted in the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, were actually beings with kind of wings which may have been a hybrid type of Orion type being. And these Nibiruns were just basically one group that were kind of using Earth people as slaves and allowing themselves to be considered as masters, kind of like Sirius B. Can you talk about that? Is Nibiru a planet, a mothership? From the history of Zecharia Sitchin, it's supposedly Planet X. Dr. Frank Strange has indicated that's correct. You say it's incorrect. What is the story of the ancient history of Nibiru? Was this a giant mothership that was mining here along with other groups? Was this one group of beings? The Anukai, but there were many other groups out here. What is the story, if you can kind of correct the story of Zecharia Sitchin and put it in perspective? I know we've talked about it before and you said it's not that important, but again, it's just endless with people, and I'd really like to put this to bed. And for those of you who want to ask questions after this on Nibiru, we will not address them. So Cobra, can you go into the a little bit, when was the Nibiru interaction, and is that the name for a group of people or a mothership? Where did they come from, and what was that history?
Okay, Sitchin was referring to Sumerian tablets. He was attempting to translate those tablets, and his interpretation was not scientifically correct. But yes, Sumerian texts are referring to a certain group of beings that you could describe them as winged beings that came from a certain star system beyond our solar system. And some of them, yes, they came from Sirius B. And I have described before the traits of Sirius B people. They were not the only ones. There was a group of many different races that were actually mixed among the ruling caste in old Sumeria. They were actually the ones who were forming the Sumerian city-states, and many of them were tied to the Archons, and their agenda was to first do some genetic experimentation, and second, to suppress the goddess energy. So this is the short story of Nibiru, and it has nothing to do with a certain object that some people name Nibiru that is supposed to enter the solar system and create cataclysm. This is absolutely not correct.
Okay, thank you. I've said that many times, and people, they like to hear it from you, so I appreciate that. The other thing I'd like to know is, and a lot of people have asked this, and there's an average person who doesn't understand and had the unique spiritual experience of the positive, benevolent extraterrestrials like you and I have the absolute direct feeling of a divine connection that takes place. But a lot of people are wondering, okay, in the terms of eternity, the extraterrestrial situation, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of years of this. What's changed so much in the last 30,000 years, or whenever the Nuburians or the people from Sirius B or the groups that were here, all these groups are down here interacting, and it seems like they all have agendas and doing things, just kind of using the earth as their own for whatever reason they want. What has changed now? Has humanity reached a level of sovereignty that we're to be respected now? And what is really going to change? How do we know that these ETs aren't just fighting over ourselves? I mean, you and I know, but what can you give other people here in terms of confidence that these different groups that are vying for what's going on here, that it's not going to be just another group with a slightly different viewpoint, that we still may get exploited, that even though they're a positive group, they're not that hostile, but that they might not manipulate us into treaties or agreements with them that might benefit them more than us? I mean, what's really changed? How do we know that these benevolent groups, are they all going to leave us alone, or are they all going to be vying for influence here? What's changed so much that we can trust all of this new interaction that we are hopefully going to be seeing for the average person?
First, you need to understand that this history does not repeat in cycles, it repeats in spirals. That means that the evolution accelerates and each cycle is faster than the previous one, and those cycles converge. And the convergence point of those cycles is the compression breakthrough. It simply means that there is a certain purification process taking place throughout the galaxy, which converges on this planet, because this planet is, number one, the prime real estate for the galaxy, and this is why so many different races were claiming it for themselves. And number two, it is the convergence point for the transformation of galactic darkness. And as we are coming closer to the convergence point, things accelerate and escalate. And this is exactly what's happening now. And at the moment of the compression breakthrough, the light penetrates through and is victorious. And this is the moment when the darkness and all those different races with the different agendas cannot play their tricks anymore, because they will be cleared out. So this is one aspect of the story. The other aspect is that people many times tend to perceive the situation from a victim perspective. Oh, I'm a pure human and there are so many other races manipulating over my destiny. When in fact, each of us is a sovereign being with full potential of the I Am presence. And if you connect with that potential and practice it, you will not be able to be manipulated by anybody with no draconian overloads or any other being. So all those fears are based on, I would say, not putting enough attention on your own connection with your own higher self and your own power of manifestation.
That's very good. Now you're talking my language, and it's something I've really been wanting people to get. And for those people who are following COBRA's information and prepare for change, again, COBRA and I always emphasize, don't sit back and just watch what the news reports are going on. Please step up, make changes in your life and your decisions and your spiritual connections. And we'll be going over a lot of that stuff at my conference in Bolivia and Mount Shasta. We'll be going over various connections exercises with meditation. So we're going to go right forward here into a bunch of questions, COBRA. We're going to see how many we can get through here. Let's start off with a young girl who follows us. She's 14 years old. So I wanted to ask her a question. Shout out for the youngsters. Who are the first sentient beings on Earth?
Okay, there were always sentient beings on Earth because they were so-called guardian beings that were responsible for creating life on this planet, that were starting to evolve biological life from viruses, microbes, and on and on. So they were here billions of years ago.
Okay, there's your answer. Billions of beings and multidimensional. As far as physical beings, that's probably so far in antiquity that no one could probably know exactly. Okay, the guy Greg Braden in Awakening to Zeroport, he said that when the Earth reaches a resonant frequency of 36 cycles per second, that's when we hit 0 point, collapse of the space-time continuum in the null zone, which also collapses. Some reports are that the Earth's resonant frequency is 16. If that's true, we may be having, if he's correct, then that would be that the ETs are holding off. Can you talk about what is the correct resonant frequency right now?
There is a lot of misinformation among New Age circles about the Schumann resonance frequency. Actually, there are multiple Schumann resonance frequencies, and the main one is about 8 hertz, and that still remains the same. It does not change.
Okay, thank you. Is there any way that we can see tachyon particles with our eyes?
Some very spiritual gifted individuals can see them with their inner eye, but to see them physically, it's almost completely impossible.
Is there any particular way that we can feel it?
Yes, of course. Those who are sensitive can feel them in many ways, and many people can experience their very strong healing effect.
Okay, those giant sinkholes that have been appearing, can you talk, were they created by someone, and if so, how, and what is their purpose? The giant holes that go way down and endless all over.
Yes, they were created by the resistance movement for the same purpose the Palladians are making the crop circles, for human beings to start asking questions, to break this monotonous matrix that was created by the Archons.
Okay. Another question. Would it be possible for Chimera members to surrender if they realize the game is over for them, or surrender an option, or would they be killed by their own kind, or would they never be able to consider that?
Surrender is always an option, and the ones who surrender will have an easier way out. But most of those types never consider surrender as an option. But surrenders did happen in the past, are happening now, and will continue to happen in the future.
Are there female members among the Chimera?
This is classified information.
Okay, can you talk about any progress with the Chimera group at this point in time?
When I will be able to release more, I will release it properly through the blog.
Okay, when we have the tachyon healing chambers coming out, will these be able to immediately reverse cancer, Alzheimer's, and other life-threatening diseases?
We have the basic version of the tachyon healing chambers already on the surface. A few of them have been built, and they are not able to heal diseases directly. They heal the inner source of the disease, and the person then goes through an inner transformation, and that can help healing the disease. The real strong chambers will be available only after the event.
Okay, for the average human, in regards to the scalar plasma field mind control implant network, does the frequency that the human is at have anything to do whether the weapon will work? In other words, if someone is extremely connected to their I am presence, will the plasma scalar field network be less effective, or can it be stopped completely?
It will be less effective.
Okay. Can you talk about starseeds? Will their personal role and mission be revealed to them before the event?
For vast majority, no. There are certain individuals who have been working on themselves quite much and following their missions. And for those, their missions are going to be revealed more and more every day. For the rest of them, they will most likely need to wait for the event.
Can you talk about the sublunar operations that will follow the Moss operation, as you've mentioned in one of your last posts?
This is unfortunately still classified information, and when I'll be able to talk about it, I will through my blog.
Here's another question. Is there anything that will be yet another obstacle to get past in order to start the event?
When we clear those strange lead and doplet bombs, the plasmatic ones, it will be a huge breakthrough. It will be felt. And when we do that, we are very close.
Obviously, there still may be other obstacles that we're not known about that are in process as well, but that's the final one. That's the ultimate one.
There might be or there might not be. I would not say one way or the other, but we are dealing with the Chimera group for the last year or so, and there has been a lot of progress.
Okay, are there reptilians, in a few of them in physical form at all here? A few, maybe?
Not in reptilian bodies, but incarnated in human bodies, yes.
Okay, a lot of people are asking about Brazil. Brazil is part of the BRICS. A lot of people are upset they have a female president now. Is there infiltration in Brazil and the cabal is still in control down there?
People need to understand that this progress of light forces with the Eastern Alliance does not mean that all countries are simply turning into paradise. There is still a lot of cabal influence in China, in Brazil, in India, in all of those countries, in Russia. But there is a strong light presence infiltrated in the government structures of those countries, and they have a priority of tasks. Number one priority is the creation of the alternative financial system, and many of the other aspects of the government structure of those countries need simply to wait. because they are not strong enough yet to deal with everything at once. So there is still a lot of corruption in Brazil, a lot of cabal influence, but you can observe certain positive trends, the lessening of the influence of international corporations, the lessening of the influence of US military, and the lessening of the influence of the petrodollar. You can easily check those trends in Brazil, in China, in Russia, and other BRICS countries.
Okay, thank you. Is Operation still a plan after the event, Operation Dreamland?
Operation Dreamland will explode with bursts of creativity after the event. It will be the new renaissance.
Can you give people a little more information about Dreamland? A lot of us know, but some people don't. What is Operation Dreamland, real quick?
Okay, I would just tell you to go to my blog, search for Operation Dreamland, and read that post.
Okay, can you talk about a little question here? Was the famine in Ireland engineered because of the Irish people's awakening, the Irish famine, or was that a natural phenomenon?
Of course, it was engineered for many objectives. The first one was to create a lot of cheap slave labor. Many of Irish went to the United States and worked in horrible conditions in the United States as a result of that famine. The second was to further suppress the goddess energy, which was quite strong in Ireland. This was the plan of the Archons, and also to suppress the awakening of Irish as a nation. And because the plan of the cabal was to unify them with United Kingdom.
Okay, here's another question I got a lot of, and I don't know, the Commander Valiant Thor and his people mentioned, Dr. Frank said that there were going to be a lot more plane crashes in the future. It seems like there's one every couple months now. And of course, everyone wants to know, was the conval involved in that crash into the mountain recently? Can you give us the reason?
Yes, there are many reasons to this. The first one, there were certain people on board that they wanted to have them silenced. And the second reason, they want to maintain the level of fear among the surface population to keep them controlled.
Okay. It is the goal of the cabal to reduce the human population. And since they have control over the non-physical plane, isn't more effective if they let souls incarnate?
It is just the goal of one faction of the cabal to reduce the human population. That is the Rockefeller, Kissinger, Bush, Illuminati faction. The other factions do not agree with that plan. This is one of the reasons why that plan was never successful. And it will not be successful. The vast majority of the cabal wants to keep the human population and not for it to be reduced because they actually like to have a lot of slaves around.
Okay. Someone's asked a question about the AN Sophia is associated with the Nag Hammadi material. Does that come from a different star system? What is the source of the Pistis Sophia?
Sophia is the ancient archetype of wisdom incarnated as Goddess Earth. And Goddess Earth is a living entity. It's not the physical planet itself, but the consciousness of the planet, which came from the galactic central sun 4.6 billion years ago and anchored that wisdom presence into this physical planet.
Okay, Alfred Lambermont Weber had a discussion, and some sources claim the Earth is actually being moved by benevolent ETs out of the solar system, but because of the solar system being cleared and restructured. Alex Collier does talk about planets being engineered by very powerful forces changing their orbits. Omnek also talked about the Earth having two moons and that one of them was exploded, and one of the reasons that we are a little more susceptible to imbalances is because we only have one moon. What is going on? Will there be any, I won't say terraforming, but solar forming of changing the orbits? Is that correct, that it's possible to actually move planets within different orbits by supergalactic forces?
Okay, yes, it is possible to change orbits of planets, and it did happen in galactic history, but this is not planned for this planet or for any larger object in the solar system in the near future. What is being planned is the vibrational change of the solar system, and this is happening already, and smaller changes on the surface of planets in the solar system, and this has been confirmed in the last few decades. There are changes in the weather patterns, intensity of the magnetic fields, and other variables on the surface of many planets inside of the solar system. and I will not comment about the followership. It might or might not happen.
Okay, very good. There's a lot of people talking about the future timelines and some of the ways you're saying breakthrough is near. And of course, that gets a lot of people on the edge of their seats who follow you. They're wondering about a timeline as possible. The breakthrough could possibly happen in late May. You talk about a date of January for a financial reset. A lot of people are kind of, I guess it's keeping people on the toes, and we don't want the cabal to know when things are happening anyway. But what is the situation with these potential timelines? Can you tell us, is there a particular time in this next coming window that things may be looking good?
Okay, I will explain my perspective. I have been directly involved in operations for the liberation of the planet for about 20 years, quite actively. And for me, near does not mean tomorrow or next week. So this is relative, what somebody perceives as near. But I would say from my own perspective, we are near to the breakthrough because most of the operations I have been involved with for many years have been completed and successfully completed. I would say the majority of the project has been brought to completion. The majority of things that needed to take place behind the scenes have taken place. And this is why I'm saying that the breakthrough is near. I'm not saying it's happening today. I'm not saying it's happening tomorrow. I'm not saying it's happening on January 1st, 2016. That is the target date for the Eastern Alliance and their plans. And this might or might not be a target date for the event.
Okay, let's see. Another question we have here is in regards to the clones. We talked a little bit about that before the interview. I found that quite interesting. I thought people would be interested in that. Can you talk about the cloning process? And we have a soul entity who inhabits a body. What happens, say they go in and they make 3 different clones. Are those clones put on ice and just waiting for a possibility when George Bush is killed and then that soul is pushed into another clone body? Or are there multiple bodies actually functioning? And if so, is it the same soul functioning those bodies?
Actually, in the vast majority of cases, there are some exceptions, but extremely rare. In the vast majority of cases, it inhabits one body. So if we have this George Bush, for example, if he gets killed, he would be captured by the Archons on the etheric plane. He would be transported to the Long Island facility on the etheric plane, and then he would be put with strong magnetic fields into the clone body that would be chosen for him. He would wake up in that base, and he would be then transported back to his original location.
So at this time, when you see a being that's George Bush, is it possible for a clone to be functioning and not have the soul of George Bush in it? If so, how is that being functioning, that clone?
Okay, there were some, what some people call clobots, which is clone robots, which are not in souls, but those entities have been cleared from the surface of the planet a long time ago. What we also have besides the clones are the lookalikes, that are human beings who look similar as George Bush, for example, and they tend to appear in certain locations which are, from a security standpoint, risk for George Bush.
Okay. An interesting thing, I found it very fascinating. I talked to Fred, and then, of course, I was reading Billy Meyer's contact notes from Wendell Stevens when I was 17, before anyone knew about him, really. I was very fascinated with the fact that the Pleiadians took Billy into one area. And if you could talk about this and the ethic, because some people have mentioned it, but I guess benevolent races have a way of creating a type of being that is kind of a humanoid and yet has kind of a, I don't know, what we call it, a vegetable or an animal type consciousness, that they have some of their machinery and bases that function on things, and they, from an outside Earth person, it would look like a slave. But according to Billy Meyer, he went in and he saw these beings that kind of look like zombies. They weren't really sentient, he said, but they actually were human bodies. They were able to perform certain functions. Can you talk a little bit about that technology and how that is deemed ethical by these light forces? And what's the situation with these beings that are kind of clone-like, I guess, is it?
Okay, this is a sad part of the genetic experimentation that was taking place in underground bases. This was not done by the light forces. This was done more by the cabal, and this was mostly happening in U.S. military secret bases with joint Draco-reptilian space programs.
Okay, I'm talking about when Billy Meyer was on one of the ships. The Pleiadians have a type of being, according to him, that they said they actually kind of create a being, but it's not really human. I mean, is that I think she said vegetable. It's like a vegetable consciousness that can be programmed.
I cannot confirm that.
You can't confirm that. Okay, maybe I'll try and get you the Billy Meyer actual contact note. I guess some things are going on there. I guess there's different thing. Could you talk about a lot of people having problem and want to have questions about? Could you talk about mercy and compassion towards the cabal and the people involved in this? I think Shimara, Breakaway, and Archons are a slightly different level of that. But can you talk about compassion and mercy towards this type of situation? And there's so much suffering and so many people. It seems at this point in time there's a strong feeling to lash out.
Okay, the compassion towards the cabal has its place only after the cabal is stopped. People are angry, and they are angry for a good reason, and this anger needs to be channeled into stopping the cabal. And then, after the cabal is stopped, after they are arrested, I would not suggest to vent people's frustration on the cabal, because that will not solve anything. After they are arrested, they have a right for a fair trial, and when their crimes are exposed, based on their decision, their future will be decided. If they would like to amend their past actions, they will be given an opportunity. If they are not willing to do that, they will go to the galactic central sun, and their individual soul presences will be erased from this dimensional universe. They will cease to exist.
Okay, here's a question someone had. A lot of people kind of go into this fear. Someone's mentioning that Poland's kind of been in the middle of a lot of stress because it borders east and west, and someone's wondering, if there's any tension going on between, European NATO forces and Russia. They feel like Poland. People are wondering, should they emigrate from Poland? Is there any potential for anything popping off there?
Again, this is fear mongering. The large-scale escalation between NATO forces and Russia is extremely unlikely.
Okay, here's an interesting one. What is transsexualism? How will it look like possibilities of body corrections after the event? What's going to happen with some people who have done sex changes?
Okay, at a certain phase after the event and closer to the first contact, people will be able to experience transmigration from their current body into a body of the opposite polarity. So if somebody is a man and would like to experience life from a perspective of a woman, he will be able to be teleported into the female body for a time. And through those experiences, some people will clear their sexual identities and heal certain traumas from the past.
Wow, very interesting. So there's going to be the possibility for people to change bodies. Will this be possible for people with extreme illnesses, or is this a certain, I don't know, it kind of seems like we have to take responsibility for the body we're in, and even though we've been attacked, maybe we can get a new body, but what's the story? Is there a karma? Well, you can't just destroy a body through bad actions and get a new one.
There is no karma as it is described in the Archon paradigm. If somebody will need a new body, that will be provided based on priority. So people will, terminal illnesses with chronic pain will be the first ones that will be healed. And if that body cannot be healed, they will be able to shift into a different body. And as we go toward the first contact, and after the first contact, like the most advanced races, they can choose and change their bodies according to their own inner guidance.
Wow, that's very interesting. The gentleman named Bob Renaud, very famous contactee of Gabriel Green that works with the people of the Corendor, has actually fallen in love with a woman from there and actually goes and inhabits a Corendorian body where he will go after his passing here. He will live his life out on Corendor. So he's one of those people that you're talking about. You mentioned a while back that after the Congo invasion of 1996, the Archons spent a period of 1996 to 99 on a mass implant program. Was that through the Greys? Were they physical implants? What was that, the nano implants? Could you talk a little bit about that?
First, there was massive implantation through plasma etheric scalar technology. Second, there was a lot of implants being distributed globally through vaccination programs with biochips. There was also a certain number of mild type of experiences when people were taken to underground bases and implanted physically after trauma-based mind programming sessions.
Okay, we're getting near the end here. I got a couple more questions we're going to get through. Can you talk about, is there more than one Sintamani stone?
Actually, Sintamani stone, there are two aspects of the stone. One aspect of the stone is a stone that fell from Sirius, and there are many fragments of that stone. For the large part of human history, that stone was in the hands of the Agartha network, and small fragments were released to humanity, or more precisely to certain most powerful human individuals that were working for the light forces. And very recently, the light forces started to release this stone massively. I will write a blog post about it quite soon.
Okay, so is it possible for average humanity to get a Sintamani stone?
Yes, we will make that happen.
Very good, thank you. Here's a question. I guess it has to do, this is the one I was interested in. One is, how did Jesus back Lazarus from the dead? And I have a follow-up question to that.
There was technology involved. There was advanced extraterrestrial technology involved in his so-called miracles.
Right, so he had a mission here to perform certain things, and they basically said, sorry, what the Palladians call a creator son is here, and we're going to take over the Archon network, and they just did it, right?
It was more serious and not so much the Palladians.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit? And we have these past life regressions. People want to know what their past lives are and stuff like that, and with their previous incarnations. It seems as though Dolores Cannon, she's passed, but she seemed to be pretty accurate. It seems some hypnotism is a way to get a hold of that. Do you know any other way that people can contact their past life reincarnations other than the golden disc of the sun down in Peru, Temple of the Seven Rays?
The most easiest and the most sure way to remember past incarnations is to strengthen your connection with your soul. And when the time is right, the soul memory will come into your physical brain and you will remember.
Okay. I'm wondering about if you could describe to people, a lot of people have been talking about when you talked about the death experience and going over, a lot of people are concerned for their family members and for themselves, especially you mentioned that the etheric plane isn't the best place to be right now when you pass over. What should people do if it's possible at the time of death? What is the situation? Will they be greeted by someone? Is that a false archon that's going to manipulate them? A family member is going to say, yes, come into the light, and you go into the archon reincarnation network?
Actually, after you go through the tunnel into the light, you will meet your loved ones. It is not a trick. It's a real situation. There is more and more light present on the etheric and higher planes, but you are still inside of the incarnation cycle. You are not able to freely just go and exit the solar system and go to Sirius or Pleiades. The situation is not as bad as it was, but if you are leaving the incarnation in usual fashion of the old age and dying, you are most likely in a quite balanced state of mind. But if you do commit a suicide, you are in an excited state, and then the transition is not so easy simply because your emotions and your energy field is an excited state. And then the transition is not so easy, and then it's easier for the archons to press your buttons, guilt, for example, and trap you more.
Okay, good. I know you talked a little bit about it in your post, but can you tell us the story behind the scenes of the AIIB, and what is the role of the AIIB in the financial reset at the event?
It is simply a vehicle of distribution for the funds which will be released after the event for infrastructure project. Right now, this is just, they're just creating, I would just call it a bureaucratic institution that needs to be established for a current level of consciousness, because when the event happens, those funds need to be channeled through certain infrastructure bureaucratic institutions, and AIIB is the perfect vehicle for that.
Okay, and here's another question. People want to know, what is the Black Knight satellite? Alex Collier said it's kind of like a giant highway patrol from the superluminals that monitor astral pathways and life in various systems. Would you concur with that?
I would not agree. Actually, the existence of the Black Knight satellite is a hypothesis and is not based on fact. It is based on some old NASA photos which actually show part of the NASA program. But this does not mean that there are no artificial satellites that are quite old. Yes, they are, but they are much deeper undercover, and nothing is known about them outside of secret space program, deep secret space program. Anybody else has no idea about them.
Okay, there were some large explosions heard by some people recently underground, and there's also was an earthquake in California and Burbank area, a very small one. A lot of people are wondering, is it still possible we may be having some more earthquake activity? This is obviously controlled by the light forces to release tension upon the acupuncture ley line points of the earth for healing. But will we get any information if there's to be some major earthquake activity? And will any of this be in Yellowstone?
The light forces are monitoring the situation in Yellowstone, are actually buffering it for quite some time. They might not be able to completely guide the situation without any earthquakes or interruptions in that area. I cannot guarantee that, but most likely they will not be very dramatic.
Okay, so another place that you mentioned, I think, also is in Chile, down in South America. There will be a little more earthquake activity. Is that correct?
It's possible.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I know we had a lot of stuff going on here, and we couldn't get to a lot of questions you had today. We had a lot of stuff to go through, but it's been very informative. Again, thank you, COBRA, for joining us here today.
Okay, thank you everybody for listening, and I will say again, the breakthrough is near. It does not mean it will happen tomorrow, but I need to repeat that to anchor and ground this energy in conscience of human beings. We are close to the breakthrough phase. We have been working for this for many, many lifetimes, and in this lifetime especially, and we are getting closer.
Thank you, COBRA, for that bit of information. I will encourage you all to have the faith in the positive forces of light and the power of your own soul. Connect to that as much as possible through the pure intelligence of your mind and your own I am presence. And that will help you achieve the victory of the light. Thank you for coming to the Promise Revealed. Don't forget, Mr. Truth Seeker, my events, the webinar coming up. God bless you all. Victory to the light.
Stars I get a feeling I come home, fading memories of a distant past life. Once a place, once a time, I felt I belonged to. Strange place we live in a different dimension that distorts reality. Is this my real world? Where will I go back? When I wake up from a dream, just like silver clouds, as I watch them from my window, they whisper in my ears, it's time to go. Just like silver clouds.